My brother and his wife didn't just betray me. They took everything I worked years to build, and they laughed in my face while doing it. Stay with me as I walk you through what happened, because it still feels unreal when I think about it. My name is Harper Collins. I'm 29 years old, and I've been working as a nurse for years, saving every spare dollar with one dream in mind: buying my first home. While my friends traveled, partied, and bought new clothes every month, I skipped vacations, worked extra shifts, and lived in a small apartment with secondhand furniture. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every deposit into my savings account felt like one step closer to freedom. That's why what happened at my family gathering in Indiana still stings so deeply. My parents had invited everyone over, warm food on the table, laughter here and there, but underneath it, the air always felt a little tense. My brother Logan, a few years older than me, walked in with his usual cocky smirk. He was the type of person who always had some new business plan that never actually went anywhere, yet he carried himself like a self-made millionaire. And right behind him was his wife, Sierra. She's the kind of person who never hides her judgment. Every outfit, every word, every choice I made, she had some sly comment ready. When I hugged her, she patted me on the back like she was doing me a favor, then whispered, "Still working those night shifts, huh?" Her voice dripped with fake concern, but her eyes were mocking. I tried to focus on enjoying the evening with my parents, but Logan couldn't help himself. Over dinner, he leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink, and said, "Harper, you must be sitting on a gold mine by now. All those shifts, all that boring saving. What's the total at? Enough to buy a castle?" The table went quiet for a moment. My parents chuckled nervously, not wanting an argument. Sierra laughed loudly, adding, "I mean, really, Harper, what's the point of working so hard if you don't know how to enjoy life? You could at least invest in something exciting instead of letting money rot in a savings account." Her words cut deeper than I let on. I gave a small smile and shrugged it off, but inside I felt uneasy. Why were they suddenly so curious about my finances? Why did it feel less like small talk and more like they were fishing for something? I remember excusing myself to grab dessert from the kitchen, leaving my purse on the chair behind me. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I trusted my own family. But that moment would later come back to haunt me. Looking back, I can still hear Logan's voice teasing, "Harper's the rich one in the family. She's just too boring to know what to do with it." I laughed it off then, but deep down I felt the first flicker of worry. I should have known that his joke wasn't really a joke at all. For years, I lived a life most people would call dull, but to me it was discipline, sacrifice, and hope for something better. Every morning before the sun came up, I put on my scrubs, tied my hair back, and walked into the hospital ready for another 12-hour shift. Night after night, I stood on tired feet, holding the hands of strangers, cleaning up messes, and pushing through exhaustion. The pay wasn't glamorous, but I had a goal: to finally own a small house I could call mine. Over the years, I managed to save $92,000. It wasn't easy. While my coworkers planned trips to Mexico or splurged on new cars, I stayed behind. I skipped out on vacations, lived in a modest rental with peeling paint, and bought my clothes from clearance racks. Every little choice mattered. When I looked at my growing savings, I didn't see sacrifice. I saw freedom. I imagined myself turning the key to my own front door, painting the walls whatever color I wanted, planting flowers in a yard no landlord could take away. When I shared this with my parents, they were proud. My mom hugged me and said, "Harper, you're doing something amazing. Most people your age don't have that kind of patience." My dad nodded, smiling with that quiet pride only a parent could have. For a brief moment, I felt like all the lonely nights and double shifts had been worth it. But of course, not everyone saw it that way. Logan, my brother, leaned back in his chair with that smug grin plastered on his face. "So let me get this straight," he said, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. "You've been working yourself half to death just to sit on a pile of money in some boring savings account? That's your big dream? A tiny little house in Indiana?" His wife Sierra jumped in before I could answer. She rolled her eyes dramatically and laughed. "It's pathetic, really. I mean, what's the point of living if you never actually live? Logan and I believe in enjoying life, not hiding money under a mattress. Imagine having that much saved up and still driving an old car." Her words stung, but I bit my tongue. I looked down at my plate, trying not to show how much it bothered me. My parents shot them both a look, but neither Logan nor Sierra cared. They thrived on making me feel small. The contrast between us couldn't have been sharper. Logan wore a designer shirt I knew he couldn't afford without maxing out a credit card. Sierra had a fresh set of nails and a sparkling necklace she bragged was just a little gift from Logan. They always had to flaunt what they didn't really own, spending money they didn't have to create the illusion of success. Meanwhile, I wore scrubs most days, reused old handbags, and stretched every dollar until it screamed. But here's the thing, I never envied them. I knew what it felt like to live with security, to see numbers grow in an account instead of shrink under debt collectors' calls. My pride wasn't flashy. It was quiet, built from self-control and determination. Still, that night I felt their words chip away at me. I could see Sierra smirking at Logan, as if mocking me was their private game. Logan finally added, "Don't worry, sis. When you get tired of living like a nun, maybe I'll show you how real money works." I forced a smile, but inside my stomach twisted. They didn't just see me as boring. They saw me as someone to exploit. And though I didn't know it then, the money I had worked my whole life to save would soon become the center of the cruelest betrayal I could ever imagine. The questions started innocently enough, or at least they seemed that way at first. After dinner, while we all sat in the living room, Logan leaned back with his feet up on the coffee table, sipping his drink like he owned the place. Out of nowhere, he asked, "So Harper, what bank do you keep your money in? Local? Or did you finally get smart and move it to one of the big ones?" I froze for a second, caught off guard. Nobody in the family ever asked me specifics about my savings. I shrugged casually. "Just a regular bank," I said, trying to keep my voice light. Sierra tilted her head, pretending to sound worried, though her eyes glinted with something sharper. "You don't have a financial advisor, do you?" "Oh, Harper, honey, that's dangerous. Money just sitting there loses value. Inflation eats it alive. You need to let it work for you. That's what we do." I wanted to laugh, because the last time I checked, they were barely scraping by, always showing off but never actually stable. Instead, I just gave a polite smile and said, "I'm doing fine, thanks." But they didn't stop. Logan leaned forward, setting his glass down, his tone shifting from casual to insistent. "Listen, I've been working on this new business idea. It's foolproof. We're about to launch big, and if you invest even half of what you've got, you could double it in months. Seriously, this is the kind of opportunity people beg for." I looked at him carefully, studying his face. He always had some scheme, flipping cars, online trading, crypto, even a failed food truck at one point. Every time it ended the same way: debt, disappointment, and excuses. "No, Logan," I said firmly. "I'm not interested." He smirked like I was just being difficult. "Come on, Harper. Don't be so uptight. You're too young to be living like some grandma clipping coupon. You've got to take risks if you want rewards." Sierra chimed in, resting her manicured hand on his arm like she was his cheerleader. "We're only trying to help you. You've worked so hard, Harper. Don't you want to see your money grow? You trust us, don't you?" That last part made my skin crawl. Trust. I wanted to trust my own brother, but something in the way she said it felt off, like a trap dressed up as kindness. I shook my head and repeated, "No, I'm happy with the way things are. I'm saving for a house. That's my plan." Logan leaned back again, rolling his eyes dramatically. "Fine. Waste your life chasing pennies. Don't say I didn't try to open doors for you." They laughed between themselves after that, whispering little comments I couldn't catch, but I felt the heat of their mockery. I tried to shake it off, but a knot had formed in my chest. That night, as I drove home, their words kept replaying in my head. Why did they care so much about where my money was? Why did Sierra act so interested, like she was protecting me, when I knew deep down she never cared about me at all? I told myself it was just their usual arrogance, their need to make me feel small. But for the first time, I felt uneasy, like a storm was building just beyond the horizon, and I was too blind to see it coming. A week after that family gathering, I woke up on what I thought would be a normal morning. The sun was barely up, and I was getting ready for another long hospital shift. I grabbed my phone to check my messages and, out of habit, opened my banking app. My heart dropped into my stomach. The balance that I had watched grow for years, the $92,000 I had worked endless nights for, was gone. Not a mistake, not a small dip, completely gone. The number staring back at me was so low I thought I had opened the wrong account. I blinked, refreshed, checked again. Still the same. My chest tightened. I felt dizzy. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial the bank's customer service line. When the representative answered, I could hardly get the words out. "My money, it's all gone. Every dollar is gone." They pulled up the transactions, and that's when my panic turned into horror. The money hadn't just vanished, it had been transferred. Large sums pulled out in 2 separate transactions, routed through accounts I didn't recognize. And worse, the rep told me, "The system shows the transfers were authorized with your personal information. Your ID, your signature. Everything matched." I remember whispering, "That's impossible. I didn't do this." My throat felt like it was closing. The bank launched an investigation, and as they dug deeper, it became clear someone had gotten hold of my documents. My driver's license number, my signature. I thought back to the family gathering, that moment I'd left my purse on the chair when I went to the kitchen. My stomach turned cold. That was the only time anyone could have gotten that close. There was only one explanation, but it was so unthinkable I almost refused to believe it. my own brother and his wife. I drove to their place, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding as I stood at their door, but when Sierra opened it, she looked at me like she had been expecting. Logan appeared behind her, smirking. "You look upset, sis," Logan said casually, leaning against the doorframe like he didn't have a care in the world. I pushed past them into the living room, my voice shaking. "Where is it?" "My savings. $92,000 gone. Don't play dumb. You were the only ones who had the chance to take my information." For a moment, they just stared at me. Then, to my shock, they laughed. Full-on laughed. Sierra covered her mouth like it was the funniest thing in the world. Logan clapped his hands together slowly, mocking. "You really should have been smarter, Harper," Logan sneered. "Leaving your purse like that, making it so easy. Money doesn't belong with someone who hides it in a savings account. It belongs with people who know how to use it." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You stole my life's work. Do you understand what you've done to me?" My voice cracked, but they just looked amused. Sierra tilted her head, her tone dripping with cruelty. "Oh, Harper, don't be so dramatic. You'll earn it back. You're good at working like a mule, aren't you?" Their laughter echoed in my ears as I stumbled back toward the door, my whole body trembling. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. My own blood, my own family, had taken everything from me, and enjoyed it. That was the moment I realized nothing between us would ever be the same again. I remember sitting in my car outside my parents' house, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. My world had just collapsed, and there was only one place I thought I could turn: home. I walked up the porch steps like a child again, desperate for comfort, desperate for my parents to tell me it was going to be okay. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old wood. My mom was folding laundry in the living room, and my dad was reading the paper. They looked up, surprised to see me in the middle of the day. I didn't even bother with small talk. My voice cracked as I blurted out, "Logan and Sierra stole everything from me. All of it, my entire savings. They wiped me clean." My mom's hands froze mid-fold. My dad lowered his paper slowly. Their eyes widened, but then I saw something else flicker across their faces: hesitation. "Harper, that's a big accusation," my dad said carefully. "I'm not accusing without proof," I shouted, tears spilling over. "The bank confirmed my documents were used. The only time anyone could have taken them was when I left my purse at the family gathering. Who else would have done that? Who else even knew I had that money?" Mom set the laundry down, her lips pressed tight. "Honey, are you sure you're not confused? Maybe it was identity theft, some stranger." "It wasn't a stranger." My voice was breaking. "It was them." I confronted them. They laughed in my face. They admitted it. Before either of them could respond, Logan walked in. He must have seen my car outside and decided to make an entrance. He strolled in like nothing was wrong, flashing that smug smile that made my blood boil. "What's going on?" he asked, though he clearly already knew. I spun on him. "Tell them what you did, Logan. Tell Mom and Dad how you stole everything from me." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Wow, really, Harper? This is low, even for you. Making up lies because you're jealous." He turned to our parents, his face the picture of innocence. "She's been bitter ever since Sierra, and I started doing better. She can't stand the thought of us being ahead, so now she's spinning this story." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He twisted it so easily, so smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it. "Jealous?" I choked out. "Jealous of what?" "You're broke, Logan. You've failed at every scam you've ever touched. You think I want that life?" He smirked. "Then why are you obsessed with me and Sierra? Why come here screaming about us if you weren't trying to drag us down with you?" My parents' silence was louder than any words. They didn't defend me. They didn't call him out. They just sat there, torn between their children, unwilling to choose a side. That silence crushed me more than his lies ever could. I left their house shaking, my heart shattered. I had gone there for support, but instead I walked out more alone than I had ever felt in my life. The weeks that followed were hell. Without my savings, I struggled to pay my rent. My landlord warned me twice about late payments. I skipped meals to stretch what little money I had left. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how my own blood could do this to me, wondering why my parents couldn't see the truth. I had always thought rock bottom was something that happened to other people, patients I treated, strangers on the news. But now rock bottom was me. I was standing in it, gasping for air, trying to find a way to climb out. And for the first time in my life, I realized no one was coming to save me. Delaney Ward had always been the kind of friend who didn't sugarcoat anything. When I showed up at her doorstep with 2 duffel bags and swollen eyes, she didn't ask questions. She just opened the door wider and said, "You're staying here." No arguments. Her apartment wasn't big, just a 2-bedroom with mismatched furniture and a stubborn leaky faucet. But to me, it felt like safety. I set my bags down in the spare room, which she usually used as storage, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in weeks, I let myself exhale. That night, over takeout containers and cheap wine, I finally told her everything. I explained how Logan and Sierra had stolen my savings, how they mocked me, how my parents refused to believe me. By the end, Delaney's face was red with anger. "Those vultures," she snapped. "And your parents, unbelievable. Harper, you can't let them get away with this. You hear me? You've worked too hard." I shook my head. "What can I do? They've already taken everything. Even if I scream the truth from the rooftops, no one will listen. Logan's already painted me as jealous and bitter." Delaney leaned forward, pointing a chopstick at me like it was a sword. "Then stop screaming and start proving. You're a nurse. You're disciplined. You're detail-oriented. Use that. Gather evidence. Build your case. If they were dumb enough to leave a trail, we'll find it." Her words planted something inside me, something I thought I had lost. Fight. It wasn't loud or fiery, but it flickered like an ember refusing to die. The next morning, I started digging. I pulled out every bank statement I had saved, going back years. I highlighted every transaction, looking for anything unusual. That's when I noticed the small withdrawals I had never made, amounts just under the threshold that would trigger a fraud alert. They had been testing me long before the big hit. I dug through old texts too. Logan had once messaged me about helping him with a business account and asking for my driver's license photo. At the time, I brushed it off, but now, seeing it in black and white, it was damning. Delaney helped me organize everything. She created a binder with tabs, bank records, messages, witness statements, notes. She was relentless, reminding me at every step that I wasn't powerless. And while I worked, I replayed every conversation with Logan and Sierra. The inconsistencies in their stories started to stand out. Logan claimed he didn't even know which bank I used, yet at the family gathering he had asked me directly about it. Sierra had mocked me for not investing, but then claimed later she had no idea how I managed my money. Their arrogance was their weakness, and I was finally seeing it clearly. At night, when the apartment grew quiet, the pain would creep back in. I'd think about how my parents looked away instead of standing up for me. I'd think about Logan's smug grin as he called me jealous. The heartbreak was still there, raw and heavy, but underneath it, something else was growing, something sharper. I wasn't going to scream or beg anymore. I wasn't going to waste tears on people who thrived on my pain. Instead, I would let the silence do the work. I would gather every piece of evidence, line it up like dominoes, and then watch as they all fell on top of Logan and Sierra. By the end of that week, I had a binder full of proof and a fire in my chest that no betrayal could extinguish. I was done being their victim. Quietly, carefully, I was turning into their reckoning. Harper sat across from the attorney's oak desk, her hands trembling as she handed over the folder she had compiled. Every bank statement, every suspicious transfer, every piece of evidence Delaney had encouraged her to gather, it was all there. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Margaret Klein, flipped through the documents with clinical precision. Her brow arched, lips tightening as she pieced the puzzle together. "This isn't sloppy theft," Margaret said finally, sliding a particular page toward Harper. "This is calculated fraud. Your brother and his wife forged your signature. Look here. These transfers went through an account under Sierra's maiden name. That's deliberate concealment." Harper felt both sick and vindicated. She had feared the truth would remain hidden, buried under Logan's smug confidence and Sierra's fake sweetness. But now, the attorney's words gave her something she hadn't felt in weeks: power. "They laughed at me," Harper whispered, her voice hoarse from weeks of sleepless nights. "They said I wasn't smart enough to protect what was mine. I thought I was crazy for even suspecting." Margaret leaned forward, her tone firm but encouraging. "You're not crazy. You're their victim. But victims can become fighters. What we have here is enough to take to court. If you want justice, Harper, this is the path." For the first time since her savings had vanished, Harper allowed herself a long breath. She wasn't broken. She wasn't helpless. She had a weapon now, truth backed by law. Still, she kept her expression carefully composed. Logan and Sierra thrived on the idea that she was defeated. They flaunted their ill-gotten comfort, wearing new designer clothes, talking about investments, and mocking her silence at family gatherings. But Harper was learning that silence had its own strength. At the next family dinner, Logan swaggered in late, his arm draped casually around Sierra. He launched into one of his favorite performances, boasting. "You wouldn't believe the deal Sierra and I just closed," he said, grinning at their parents. "It's all about knowing how to make money work for you. Some people just let it sit there, rotting in saving." Sierra giggled, her hand tightening around his. Her diamond ring sparkled under the light, a constant reminder of what Harper's hard work had been stolen to buy. Harper's stomach churned, but she forced her lips into a small, secret smile. Because what Logan didn't know was that his every arrogant word was building his own downfall. The attorney had already drafted the first filing. Soon, the authorities would come knocking, and the forged documents would speak louder than his smug lies. Their parents exchanged uncertain glances across the table, half worried by Harper's silence, half captured by Logan's confident performance. Logan mistook her calm as weakness, and that delighted him even more. "You know what they say," he continued, lifting his wine glass in a mock toast. "Money always ends up where it belongs." Harper looked at him fully then, meeting his eyes without flinching. Her smile widened just a fraction, enough to unsettle him, though he didn't quite know why. Inside, she felt a spark of satisfaction she hadn't tasted in months. Let him brag. Let him laugh. Because soon, the laughter would turn to shock. And when the truth finally hit him, Harper would be sitting across the courtroom, watching as everything he thought was as crumbled like sand in his hand. For now, though, she played the role of the quiet sister, the one too broken to fight, the one too naive to notice, and she relished every second of keeping the storm hidden until it was ready to strike. The living room buzzed with the usual chaos of a family gathering, laughter, overlapping conversations, the clinking of dishes. But Harper's heart wasn't in the noise. She sat quietly at the edge of the sofa, a neat leather folder resting on her lap. Her palms were steady now, not shaking as they once had. Weeks of humiliation had turned into weeks of preparation, and tonight, the moment she had envisioned was finally here. Her parents, Peter and Evelyn, were bustling around, eager to keep everyone comfortable. Logan, as usual, had planted himself in the center of attention, glass of whiskey in hand, smirking as he regaled the family with exaggerated stories of his latest investment. Sierra perched beside him, elegant in a new silk blouse that Harper knew had been bought with her stolen savings. Harper waited until the chatter died down naturally, until everyone was seated with plates full, the perfect moment when the room was listening. She rose to her feet, smoothing the folder in her hands. "I need everyone's attention," Harper said, her voice clear and unwavering. Logan laughed, waving her off. "Oh, come on, Harper, can it wait? Don't ruin dinner with one of your pity parties." Her parents shot him a warning look, but Harper didn't flinch. She opened the folder, pulled out the first set of papers, and placed them carefully on the coffee table. "These," she said, sliding the pages forward, "are the bank records showing every transfer from my account over the past month. Transfers I didn't authorize." The room went silent. Logan's smirk faltered, but he leaned forward with mock amusement. "So, maybe you made some bad choices and don't want to admit it." Harper's eyes didn't leave his. She pulled out another document, side-by-side copies of her genuine signature and the forged one used on the withdrawal form. "The bank's fraud department disagrees. These signatures were forged, not just by anyone, by you and Sierra." Sierra's face drained of color. She reached for Logan's arm, whispering frantically, but Harper wasn't finished. She pulled out another stack, receipts of the purchases Sierra had made under her maiden name with Harper's stolen funds. "Here's the account you tried to hide the money in," Harper continued, her tone sharp but steady. "Under Sierra's old name. Did you think no one would notice?" Her parents gasped, Evelyn clutching at her chest as she leaned forward to scan the pages. Peter's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking from the documents to Logan, disbelief and fury colliding on his face. Logan stood abruptly, his voice rising desperate. "This is garbage. Harper, you're just jealous. You've always been jealous. You can't stand that I'm successful while you..." "Successful?" Harper cut in, her voice slicing through his shouting. "You mean stealing from your own sister? Forging her name? Emptying her life savings to fund your ego?" Sierra's hands trembled as she tried to gather the papers, but Evelyn smacked them back onto the table. "Don't you dare touch these," their mother hissed, her eyes blazing. The room seemed to tilt. Years of blind faith in Logan crumbled before everyone's eye. Their golden son was revealed for what he was, a liar, a thief, a betrayer. Harper took a breath, her final card ready. "I didn't come here tonight to beg for your acknowledgement. I came to tell you the truth. And to let you know," she paused, lifting her chin, "that charges have already been filed. The authorities have everything they need." The silence that followed was suffocating. Logan's face twisted in rage, but there was no ground left for him to stand on. Sierra sat frozen, pale and speechless. For the first time in years, Harper's parents turned their eyes not to Logan, but to her, filled with shame, sorrow, and a dawning respect. Harper closed the folder and stepped back, calm in the middle of the storm. The betrayal was Nosmirk. It was a gray Thursday morning when Harper's phone buzzed with the message she had been waiting for. "They're going in today," her attorney had written. Harper sat at her small kitchen table, coffee cooling in her mug, heart pounding steady and sure. For weeks she had lived in a fog of tension, but now it was time. By noon, police cruisers rolled quietly down the street where Logan and Sierra lived in their two-story rental. Harper wasn't there in person, but her attorney later described how neighbors stood on porches, whispering as officers led Logan out in handcuffs. Sierra followed minutes later, her face blotchy from crying, her wrists bound as cameras flashed from across the street. The couple who had once laughed in Harper's face were now pale, desperate shadows of themselves. When Harper first stepped into the courtroom, the air felt thick, heavy with the weight of unfinished business. She sat in the front row, her attorney beside her, clutching a notebook where she had written down every moment of her ordeal. The endless shifts at the hospital, the sacrifices she had made, the night she found her account drained, the cruel laughter when she confronted them. All of it was carved into her memory, and now it would finally be recognized. Logan entered in his orange jumpsuit, chains rattling softly at his wrists and ankles. His bravado was gone. He avoided her gaze, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Sierra looked no better, hair unkempt, makeup smudged, staring at the floor as if it might swallow her whole. The prosecution laid everything bare. The forged signatures, the transfers into Sierra's maiden name account, the receipts of their extravagant spending. The judge's voice was steady, but every word was a hammer against their defenses. Harper didn't need to testify long. The evidence spoke for itself. When the moment of pleading came, Logan tried to fight, his voice cracking as he insisted he had been misunderstood. But the weight of the proof crushed him. Finally, both he and Sierra lowered their heads and whispered the only words left to them: guilty. The judge ordered restitution. Most of Harper's savings would be returned once the process was complete. Not all of it, but enough that she could breathe again, enough that the dream of her own home no longer felt impossible. As court adjourned, Harper rose to leave, but Logan suddenly turned. Shackled, shoulders hunched, his voice broke as he called out to her. "Harper, please. Don't let them do this. We're family. You can stop this. Just drop the charges. Please." Harper froze, meeting his eyes at last. For a brief second, she remembered being children together, the way he used to defend her on the playground, the way he used to make her laugh. But those memories were drowned by everything that followed. His smirk as he mocked her, Sierra's cold laughter, the empty bank account that had nearly destroyed her life. Her voice was calm, even but firm as stone. "No, Logan. You chose this. And now you'll live with it." The bailiffs led him away, his pleas echoing in the courtroom. Sierra trailed behind him, silent, eyes empty. Harper stood tall, feeling the weight lift from her chest. Justice had come. Not perfectly, not without scars, but enough to prove one truth: she wasn't helpless. She had fought back, and she had won. The keys jingled in Harper's hand as she stood in front of the little brick house she had dreamed of for years. It wasn't big, and it wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The porch light glowed softly against the evening sky, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Harper allowed herself to breathe deeply without the weight of fear pressing down on her chest. She pushed open the door, stepping into the empty living room where sunlight stretched across the hardwood floor, and she let her fingers graze the freshly painted wall. This was the place she had fought for, the symbol of everything she had endured and everything she had reclaimed. Buying the house hadn't been easy. Even with restitution from the court, Harper had to work months of extra hospital shifts, sacrificing her weekends and sleep to piece together the final amount she needed. Each overtime hour she clocked felt like another stone laid in the foundation of her future. And when the day came to sign the papers, she had smiled quietly to herself, remembering Logan's words, how he had mocked her for living born. Yet here she was, signing for a home, while Logan sat in a cell. Her parents came to see the house not long after she moved in. They stood awkwardly in the doorway, taking in the cozy space Harper had decorated with simple, thoughtful touches. Her mother's eyes welled up as she whispered, "We should have believed you from the start." Her father nodded, guilt heavy in his silence. Harper listened, but she didn't cling to their words. She no longer needed their approval to feel whole. For too long she had chased their validation, desperate for them to stand by her. But standing in her own living room, Harper realized she had built her own foundation of strength. Whether her parents understood or not no longer defined her worth. Logan and Sierra's downfall spread quickly through the community. Friends who once flocked to their parties now kept their distance. Their reputation was ruined, their finances shattered, and the easy arrogance they had carried for years evaporated. Harper heard through whispers that Sierra had moved back in with her parents after Logan's sentencing, unable to hold down a job with the fraud charges tied to her. Harper didn't celebrate their misery, but she also didn't pity them. They had written their own, ending the day they chose greed over family. In the evenings, after long shifts, Harper would curl up on her second-hand couch, sipping tea and staring at the walls of her new home. The silence wasn't lonely anymore, it was peaceful. She thought back to the nights she cried herself to sleep in her friend Delaney's spare room, convinced she would never recover what was stolen. Now she stood stronger, not because life had been kind, but because she had refused to let betrayal define her. On moving day, after the last box had been set down, Harper walked slowly through the house. She ended in the living room, where golden light streamed through the windows, casting a glow across the bare floor. She stood there, exhausted but proud, her hand pressed to her chest as if to hold her heart in place. This was her revenge. Not shouting, not bitterness, but success. Quiet, steady, undeniable success. Logan and Sierra had taken everything once, but she had rebuilt. And what she built this time, no one could ever take away. Do you believe Harper made the right choice by cutting ties and moving forward on her own? Or should she have tried to mend things with her family despite the betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.